Breastfeeding.
Slide it.
Scene 2, Juliet, take 1.
Cut. Cut.
I actually got square in focus.
Okay.
So I held that, but the mud was tripping me up.
That's cut. Hello and welcome to our fifth live event here at Storytellers. My name is Heidi Wilson. I'm the director here. And today we got to see a behind the scenes sneak peek at Crimson Rose Productions' newest film challenge. Here with me today, I have 3 people from behind the scenes from the cast and crew. Guys, can you introduce yourselves? Crimson Rose and Colt, let's start with you.
Hi, yes, I am Crimson Rose Sugg, the director, and both produced the film. This is my brother.
Yes, my name is Colt Sugg. Crimson Rose and I both produce. And he does more of the directing. I do more producing and acting.
And I'm Mike Parker. Hi.
And Mr. Mike, what did you do on set?
I was just one of the actors.
All right, cool. Well then, so to our audience who's tuning in, you guys feel free to send any questions. Obviously, this was just a sneak peek, so if you ask a spoiler question, they'll just tell you it's a spoiler and they can't tell you. But feel free to send in your questions and I'll make sure they get to them. All right, so first of all, what can you guys tell us about the film's story?
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you that there is no dialogue, so it's kind of an artsy film, short film, if you will. And it's about 2 clans coming forward and presenting their best warriors to fight for rulership over the land. And then they fight, and you see what happens. They did the Colt and Elijah Perry were both the warriors who fought in it. You probably saw that in the sneak peek in the behind the scenes. They did a phenomenal job. The choreography is amazing.
Cool. Can you give us some background of how you guys, like you 3, know each other and how you decided to create a film?
Yes, absolutely. So let's see. We have a mutual friend, Betsy Clemens, and a while back she told us about the Perrys and said, hey, y'all like this genre. They do medieval films. You should check them out. And here's a little plug for them. They're CITC Productions. They do other medieval films, and they're currently working on a modern day film, Hero, which is a really good film. You should check it out. But she told us about him, and he auditioned for a short film we did for a 1 week challenge, and we kind of got to know him. And we reached out to him and asked if he would be a part of our film called Iron that we did last year. So we met on that set as he came and helped out, and then we just started talking and hit it off, and we just love the Perrys, love Elijah. He's fantastic. So that's kind of how we met up.
Cool. And how do you guys know Mike Parker?
I've known Mr. Mike my whole life. I don't know what it was like when I first met him, but he could probably explain more of that.
We became good friends with Robert and Tracy, who are Colton Crimson's parents, many years ago. I think Crimson was maybe 1 year old, or maybe not even born. I'm not really sure. It's been that long ago. So yeah, we really have known Colton Crimson since forever. It's been quite a journey watching her grow up and embrace this whole career field of becoming a filmmaker. I've had the opportunity to watch her grow, to actually mentor her in a couple of situations, which has been a lot of fun as well. I think the things that I've enjoyed about the process is watching not only what she does behind the camera as a director and a producer and screenwriter, but also as a pretty phenomenal young actress. So I'm loving watching what she's doing both in front of and behind the camera. And switching sides over to the guy with the beard, who is not me. This guy is pretty incredible with developing props. He's a fine actor and sound technician and all of the technical aspects behind the scenes as well. So I can't wait to see what these two kids do when they really do a full-blown feature film, which I anticipate really soon. So get after it, guys.
Speaking of props, what's the costumes and props from what we can see look pretty epic. Who designed them? What's the story behind them?
Well, as far as the costumes, our costume designer and wardrobe supervisor was Betsy Clemens. She does a phenomenal job, and the costumes were pulled together from the Perrys, from a few from us, from Summer, one of the actresses, and just gathering things together. And Betsy does a fantastic job of just piecing the costumes together and really fits the character of who they are. The clothing reflects the character. The clothing kind of tells the story of who is wearing them. It's really neat. And Colt can tell you more about the props.
As far as the props are concerned, the weapons that we used in the fight scene, the Perrys brought them in from their production company, because Elijah has a good background in sword fighting and stuff like that. So he had the weapons that we used when we were actually fighting the swords. There was a prop that I actually worked on and made specifically for this film, that I had forged about a year ago. And it features in the film someone holding it in the background, and it is a halberd. So I forged this out of steel, and it's on a long shaft about that long. It was actually an original idea that my character is going to be fighting with this versus Elijah with the sword, but it ended up the choreography sword versus sword was a much better approach than halberd versus sword.
So then we ended up giving the halberd to actor Jay Golden, and I think it fit his character really well.
Cool. How do you when you're kind of coming at a film, Colt, how do you do the research and decide what fits with the film that you're creating?
So Crimson Rose and I love doing period pieces. So it really depends on the period that we're shooting for. Is this something that's historically accurate, or is it just some fantasy film that we're just creating the own world for? So generally, I'll think about the storyline, and if it's sort of based in the world that we have created, which I would say that Challenge is one of those worlds. It doesn't have a specific historical time. I just look at, what I'll do is I'll look up a bunch. I did a lot of research of old medieval weapons that span across several hundred years, and just look at all the different types until something sparks in my head that I like, and then try to create one or something like that. And I just get a feel for the film, or we'll pull pictures together and have something, or maybe music to listen to that makes me think about whatever that specific production is going to be, and that sort of inspires the props. And I like trying to make the props as real as possible, because I feel like it gives life to the set, and people walk on like, oh, this is actually real, something's actually going on. So that's sort of where I come from on the prop side of things and pre-production.
Cool. Well, I want to ask you guys more about like what it's like to work together as a brother-sister team too. But first of all, we have quite a few audience questions rolling in. So our first one, how long will the finished project be?
It will be about 7 minutes.
Okay. Were there any challenging parts of the story to tell without dialogue? What creative solutions came out of that?
Well, when I first started writing it, it was last February, we had lots of dialogue, multiple locations, and then throughout the year the story changed, and we went to one location and scratched all the dialogue. And I really wanted to create a film with a really good fight scene. That was one of the main goals. But I wanted a good story to follow along with that. And a dear friend of mine, Valaine Shelby, stepped alongside me. She was also my assistant director and helped me. She took my concept and my idea and wrote it out beautifully in a wonderful screenplay and really honed the idea. So we bounced ideas back and forth. The rest of the family pitched in ideas, and there were some challenges, but with Valaine's help and, of course, God's help, we were able to get across over those challenges. And I sent a friend of mine the rough edit, and she didn't know anything about the story, and she said she was able to understand the story fine. So I was like, good.
Was that intimidating, making something without dialogue?
Yes.
But it was also a relief, because just saying, capturing audio with costumes and stuff like that can be very, very challenging. So it's also going to be a big blessing in the editing process as well.
Gotcha. All right. Well, our next audience question is, what was your inspiration behind the choreography for the sword scenes?
So that would be, sure, yeah, go ahead.
So for me, 3 inspiring films would be Gladiator, the opening fight scene, the fight scene in Prince Caspian between Peter and the other guy, and then an Assassin's Creed video game trailer, Assassin's Creed Revelations. So those inspired me, and then I shared it with Colt and Elijah, and then Elijah had a lot of good videos, and Colt, they worked hard together and continued.
So we came from that sort of inspiration, and then Elijah we were like, oh yeah, we should work together on this project. Once he was on board, we got together to meet, and he had done a ton of work already, and said, I have a lot of these videos and footage from all these different fight scenes, and we just sort of watched them and broke them down and looked at stuff that we liked and what sort of created it from there.
Wow. Was there anything in particular that was difficult about doing choreo? Have you guys done fight scenes before?
So yes, we've done, as far as Crimson Rose Productions, we've done a fight scene before, but as far as weapons like swords, I would say we'd be pulling from more of a stage background. So we really relied on Elijah Perry, since he's done many films with weapons and stuff in medieval times.
Gotcha. How did your team come together? Were most people local? Did some come from far away? How did you pull them together?
Well, for every production, we always pray and say, Lord, please send the cast and crew that you want. And so there were a few people that I contacted beforehand that I knew I wanted, and I said, hey, we'd love for you to be on the set. Can you come? And those were more local people. And then I also sent out a cast and crew call, and we did have people from several different parts of the country come in. One of our crew members, who is fantastic, Joseph Ely, came from, is it Kansas? He came far away. And then Heidi and Benjamin Olson came down from, it's Minnesota, right?
Michigan.
Michigan, sorry, Michigan. So that was a ways. And then we had some people from Alabama, and then kind of spread across Tennessee. And there may be a few others.
Wow. Was that, how was this compared to like crew sizes, cast and crew sizes that you had before?
It was about the same size as the short film Iron that we did last fall, or last fall. So it's about 25 people. But we needed every single one of them, and they did a fantastic job. And I cannot brag enough about them. They pitched in through the brutal cold weather, and they just had smiles on their faces and were always willing to jump in and help out and build fires so we could be warm, spread mulch because the ground was getting muddy, and just helping out however they could. They were so amazing.
Something that's interesting about the crew size is that we used the same crew size on another project. How long was Iron? 27 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
It was 27 minutes, and we filmed it over the course of
5 days.
5 days. Okay, so that was 27 minutes. So we have this short film that's 7 minutes. We filmed it across 3 days. And honestly, I think we thought we were going to have all the time in the world. I was blown away by how much, I guess, we had learned. So as a consequence, we had to, it took longer. So with the crew and everything we had, it was like the same crew was like, oh, we're going to knock this out. And it was very challenging. We could not have done it without the crew that we had.
Mm-hmm. They were organized. They did everything really well. And Belaine was great of keeping us on track. It was just fantastic.
How important would you guys say for the other filmmakers out there, and Mr. Mike, feel free to jump in here too, how important is it to have a solid cast and crew? Like, can the director pull them together? If it's just a good director and you got kind of everybody else kind of iffy, how's that?
Can I just jump in real quick? As an actor, I am fond of saying actors are cattle, because there's a lot of really great actors out there, but quite frankly, a lot of them are interchangeable. You can't interchange the crew. Crew the director is the artist, and the crew is the one who paints the canvas with the artist's vision. So the crew is absolutely indispensable. The cameraman, who is Ryan, I guess, was the cameraman, right? He was stellar, getting so many great shots. And when you have a great cameraman, a great cinematographer, a great director, and the other crew members who are making it all happen, it makes the actor's life really easy. We just have to sit there and look pretty. And those guys actually really do all the work. So in my opinion, not taking anything away from actors, acting is a craft and a skill and an art form of itself. But it's really those guys who are working behind the scenes that makes the film what it is.
What would you guys add to that, Crimson Rose and Colt?
I absolutely agree. Finding a good cast and crew is great, and really be open to who the Lord sends you, because it may not be who you expect, but in the end, you're like, I'm so glad we had someone here. Or he can do things. God is bigger than your project, and he can do things offset between people who never met and then they become really good friends afterwards, or amazing conversations that I've had, or things that are hard and challenging, and you're able to confide in a fellow brother or sister in Christ. So the quality of people, I would say, really matter as well. You know, so if you're trying to get a cast and crew together, interview them, get to know them, see if one of your friends know them. We've been blessed to have some really great cast and crew on our projects.
That's cool. So I've got another audience question here. what makes this time period special to you? And of course, like yours is kind of a fantasy piece, but what in particular do you guys enjoy about this style and this period that you do?
What I like about it is that it's different than the other shorts we've done so far. We've done one 1800s fantasy film, and then we did an Edwardian film. So now this was closer to a medieval slash Renaissance, I guess, film. So I enjoyed that it was a new period that we were trying, and the sword fighting. That's what I love about it. About you.
Yeah, it's basically, I know it's harder to do a period piece as opposed to just shooting something in modern day. And there are a lot more variables, but it's just fun. It's a fun challenge, and it's fun to try to tackle it.
Hmm. Another audience question: how was it working there in the snow? We can see a little bit in the promo, and you guys mentioned it. How did that go?
Well, it was really interesting because we prayed to the Lord for good weather, and it rained and stormed the first day, and the second day we had freezing temperatures. It was very cold, and then the third day it snowed, so continuity was out the window. And we were like, oh my goodness, but we, just prayed, Lord, whatever your will is, and it turned out better because we got some amazing snow shots, and God knows what's going on and what will be good for us. So
Oh my goodness.
the guys pitched in and built a fire. Everyone had great morale, and we're passing out hand warmers. It was very hard and very cold. I would step outside, had so many layers on. I was like, okay, I'm ready. And it would always be colder than I expected it to be. But everyone powered through it. Everyone was such troopers about it.
Okay, I gotta jump in on this too. There was so it's really interesting is we had done another project, and it was going to be outside, and it was going to rain, and we're like, man, if it rains, it's going to mess up the entire day of filming. So we prayed, and it did not rain. And I was like, wow, that's super cool. God answered our prayers. This is amazing. So this project was coming up and looked like it was going to be rainy and stormy, and I was like, well, God's done it in the past. I'll just pray that it's not going to rain and stuff like that. So I wasn't really concerned. And then my dad was like, hey, do you want to get tarps and like put them up in the trees to protect us from the rain and stuff? And I was like, well, I guess we could. I'm not expecting it to rain, but we could. So we prepared for rain and stuff like that. And then it poured. And I was like blown away. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad we did all this work. And what ended up is that rain turned into a big blessing, specifically for the fight scene, because it turned the ground to muddy mush, which made it very difficult to fight in, but it softened the ground for impacts and stuff that we had, and it looked a lot better on film. God was still in control through everything. It's so cool how he's above us, and anything we do is just to serve and glorify him, and he knows what needs to happen.
Mr. Mike, can you say from your perspective how the weather was?
It was cold. It was wet and it was cold. It was wet and it was cold and it was snowy. And I was wet and cold and snowy. You don't have any more hair than I have. It's really cold. But here's what I would say about that is I was so incredibly impressed with the cast and crew working through all of those challenges. Because when you have everything set in the way that you want it to go, and then God or whoever throws a monkey wrench into your plans, if you're not flexible, you'll just break. And this cast and crew they figured it out as they went along, which was amazing to watch. One thing in particular that really absolutely floored me, and I'm going to do a shout out to Summer, who I believe her character was the Sword Maiden. Was that her character? First off, Summer looks amazing. She just has this warrior maiden look that man, if you saw her, you would not want to tangle with this girl. She looks like she would just take you apart at the seams and not even break a sweat. Personally, the guys all were wearing boots and double socks and all that kind of stuff. Summer's out there in sandals. I'm pretty sure she's barefoot in the cold, snowy, wet mud, and she never broke character. She was just on all the time, and it made me not want to shiver like a little girl and cry the whole time. So, I mean, she inspired me. This girl was, I mean, she was fierce. And not just her, but every other actor that was on the set, all the other crew members, they were just solid as a rock. It was an amazing thing to behold. But make no mistake, when you were filming outside in the cold and the snow and the elements, it is hard work. So people sometimes go, oh, the glamorous world of filmmaking. Well, let me tell you about the glamorous world of filmmaking. Sometimes you're rolling around in the mud and getting hit. So kudos to all those guys like Colt and Elijah who really were rolling around in the mud and in the cold. I just had to sit there on a throne and, you know, look cool, but those guys were doing it. So, man, yeah. And on top of all of that, yeah, it was a lot of fun too.
How was that, Colt, wrestling in the mud? Was that difficult?
Yes, it was difficult. Elijah and I had practiced and we had locked the choreography, and we came in and it was really muddy. So you're sliding and falling everywhere, which didn't bother us so much because we wanted it to look natural and real. So there are some of the shots that Crimson Rose has chosen for the edit that it was one of the slipping that was not part of the choreography that just, it looked good, very natural, and being able to, it brings an element of something that's real, as opposed to, this is just something rehearsed that they're going through and practicing. Now, I will say there was...
Can I interrupt and just kind of throw in a question real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Colt, because I think particularly for you, it's pretty salient, but for those of us who are watching, those are like real swords that you're wailing at each other with. I mean, that when you're talking about slipping in the mud and slinging steel around, there's a certain element of danger there. What did you guys do to protect yourselves from getting injured?
Well, yes, going to the props, they were real swords. They, I mean, they're steel, special steel, you know, for weapons and stuff like that. And the one I was using was actually an edged weapon, meaning it was sharp, like as in, when I first Elijah handed it to me, I was like looking at it, it's like, oh, that's cool, and realized I'd already cut myself and hadn't noticed it was that sharp. And that was when I was going to be using. Okay, so if we slip in the mud and miss or something like that and accidentally made contact, it would have been very bad. So we took some precautions against that. We practiced very thoroughly. We used just random sticks on the ground and practiced going through the motions. We also had some other weapons that we used that were not edged. They were still fully metal and stuff like that. We still had to be careful though. I have one here that we used while we were practicing on the choreography, and it had seen a lot of wear, so it was pretty dull, but it's still metal and stuff like that. But as we were going through the choreography, we were fighting, and then all of a sudden the blade goes shooting off because it came off of the guard where it was attached. The tang had actually broken. So that was another element that we had to juggle in as well as far as safety was concerned, is just knowing that a sword might break, and when it breaks, it may go somewhere we don't want it to go. So I can say that putting into practice all that stuff, and throughout the entire time, we would just stop and pray. Even if the camera's rolling, right, we're about to do something that's difficult, potentially dangerous, we just stop and pray about it and just go with it. But really relying on Elijah Perry's expertise in this field, he was able to show us how to do the sword moves in the safest way that looked the best, most aggressive. So it was a challenge, and it was awesome. And I would do it again with someone I trust, like Elijah. So wouldn't do it just anybody. You gotta know what you're doing. So.
How was that for Mr. Mike and Colt? How was that acting under these conditions, like muddy, snow, raining? Was it hard to keep character in the midst of all of that?
I'll give it to you, Colt.
Okay. As far as keeping character in the mud and snow and stuff, for me, it was not too difficult. Because so my role, I'm supposed to be a barbarian warrior that's fighting, right? So for me, I was just in the cold, fighting in the mud, yelling and screaming and swinging a sword all day. So it did not bother me whatsoever. And the coldness, it really didn't bother me either, because we were actually up and moving. moving around. The worst thing for us are like hands getting cold, toes getting cold. Honestly, it was probably worse for the people on the sidelines, where you're just standing there and you don't get to move because you're just staying there all day, not getting a chance to like jump up and down. So as far as being staying in character, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't hard at all.
Yeah, I'll riff off of that. For me, the cold and the mud, particularly on the snowy day, the weather actually became a character in the film to me. And it added so much realism to what we were doing that it made it easy to play off of it. So I think the weather actually enhanced the character development of everybody who was involved with it from my perspective. So I thought it made it easier to actually get involved in the story itself and be a part of that character because of the cold and the snow and the mud and everything.
Mm. Yeah.
Wow. That's a good perspective on it too. Another audience question, did you write the script or the choreography first?
We wrote the script first.
Okay. How many drafts did you go through?
Of the script?
Oh my goodness. Let's see, because I went through several drafts even before Verlaine jumped on board. So
And y'all went
maybe
through like 7.
no more than that. Well, maybe you're right. I don't know. I'd say 10 to 15. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it was more like 8 to 10 or something.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
Of revisions. I remember because like we had the original story, then trying to follow it, and it kept changing, and I kept having to reread it to figure out where we were at. And I think even maybe on set, I'd be like, "When are we gonna film this?" And Crimson's like, "Oh, that's not in it." And I was like, "Oh no."
Wow. How long did this take to film?
3 days. We shot it in 3 days. The cast and crew from out of town came in the night before, and we did some pre-production and then shot 3 days.
I've got quite a few questions about the snow and the weather challenges, which you guys have answered a lot of that. But anything more to say to this question? Someone asked, how did you overcome the weather conditions?
Well, we had prepared with some hand warmers, and then we ran out of them. So my dear sweet friend Heidi went and picked up some more hand warmers for us, and the hostess, the owners of the property we were filming on, they also broke out some of their hand warmers, and the guys pitched in and built a fire that I think was fantastic and really helped keep the cast and crew warm. And we just told everyone, I emailed them before and I said, bring lots of layers. It may be really cold, and it turned out to be really cold. So we just layered up, and I feel sorry for some of the actors that weren't able to layer very much up, but everyone was troopers.
And one thing they also had were blankets. So you were in full costume, but they could, in between takes, just throw a blanket around you. And that was something that was really nice as well, because then you could just like stay warm and they take off and go right back into it.
Yeah.
But the fire was a big help. And I think our PAs, which are production assistants, which was our younger brother, Robert, and then also Will Merchant was the other production assistant. They both have a background of being a part of Trail Life USA, which is a Christian scouting organization. So they're perfectly at home for making a fire and keeping it ready and hot for everybody. And it was a blessing to have them do that. So in between takes, you could go try to warm up your hands and then run back.
And if I may say a shout out real quick to Benjamin Olson and Betsy Clemens and Amanda Wright, sorry, I forgot her last name for a second, and Hava Perry, who were constantly had piles of blankets and scarves and would dump it on the cast in between takes to help try to keep them warm. We appreciate y'all a lot.
How about for the set too? I'm sure that affected what you dealt with every day as far as like, you know, the area getting wet and all of that. How did you work towards consistency?
Wow. Well, one issue that we had, big issue that we had, was that the area that we had picked was supposed to be cleared. So we worked really hard to scrape away all the debris and leaves and stuff. And I had help from the Clemens family. I had Bill and Joe Clemens come in and help for pre-production to clear out, just to expose the earth. So when it rained, it got saturated. There's nothing to protect it, and then it turned to this mud, and it turned into this big wallowing pit. So what we had to do, and I'm not even sure how this happened. This was more, I think, I don't know. I was busy doing other stuff on set. Somehow, somebody just got loads and loads of mulch down there and just started putting it into the mud to try to build it back up so it would be so bad. And it would just turn to mud again. So we had to work with that as well. And we had just getting to and from set, because it wasn't a super easy accessible location. So we had this sort of Ranger side by side that had these big mud tires that we would just go through puddles, and it had flooded up and stuff. But it made it through. Only got stuck once, in which our crew was able to get it out. So it was very challenging, but I don't know, people jumped in and made it happen.
Wow. I just have to ask for the audience's sake, of course. Did you guys name the film Challenge on purpose? Because it sounds like, the name was reflected in the filming.
I did not, but we've discovered that there were challenges in pre-production. There were challenges in production on the shoot, and there haven't been too many challenges in post-production, for which I am very grateful, but it is ironic.
Would you say it's been more challenges than normal as far as what you faced on other sets?
Pre-production. There were challenges. Iron had some challenging moments for sure. It's very different. Each set and each film is very unique. So the challenges themselves were unique and different. So I don't know.
As far as our experience in film, with the few shorts that we've done, so we've been doing this for like a couple years now, or somewhere in there. So we don't have these years and years, tons of years of experience, but it seems to me that making a film is very difficult, and that challenges will arise for each project, and you gotta figure out a way to overcome them, or else the project is not gonna happen. Mr. Mike, you have actually made a feature film before, and I know that y'all ran into a lot of challenges.
Every film has its own set of challenges that as does life. Everything you go through, you're going to face some kind of monkey wrench, some kind of fork in the road, some kind of twist that you weren't anticipating. It's really all about, again, being flexible and being good enough at your craft that you can make a twist and turn when you need to. We shot a feature film, shot 88 pages in 7 days. So yeah, it was learned a lot on that. The key to me is having your people in place. If you have the right people, particularly your crew, but obviously your actors as well, who are able to respond to those changes, then you just have a story to tell rather than a train wreck. So I think one of the things that I was very impressed, particularly with this set, was the quality of the crew, quality of the actors that were there. Everyone was of one heart and one mind. I think casting the right people and bringing the right people on for your crew, obviously in any film set is absolutely essential. But when you're working on an ultra low budget, where in a lot of cases these people are volunteering their time and their energy and sometimes their money and their equipment, all to make your vision come true, that is a true gift. And I think Crimson and Colt, you guys did just a fantastic job of doing that.
Well, we couldn't have done it without all of you, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. And real quick, jumping in on equipment, apparently camera equipment does not mix with water. Okay, so we had all this rain and all this stuff, and we were like, oh my goodness, we weren't quite prepared 100%. But we had some people that brought their equipment and were using their own personal equipment amongst all the weather and stuff. So I think y'all saw in the little behind the scenes, we had people with umbrellas standing over the equipment trying to take care of it and stuff like that. So Ryan Trinkamp, he had his equipment out there. Michael Walker had scads of equipment that were trying to keep track of it all stuff. And I was just blown away that they're
Huge
willing to
thank you.
risk,
Yeah.
you know, oogles of money and equipment on a project like this where the weather's just bad and could ruin things. So it was a huge big thing.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here because the set had a creek running right to the outside of it. This little stream creek was an integral part of the set. And after the first day, when it rained that night torrentially, I woke up and I thought, there is no way we are going to shoot anything today. I had visions of the entire set being underwater. Was absolutely amazed when I got down there, and the creek was full all the way up to the top of the bank, but it was still available to shoot on. But yeah, that was I was just like, how did we work out past that? I was amazed.
Well, as we're down to the last 17 minutes here, I've got a lot of audience questions rolling in, so we'll see if we can get to them all. We'll do our best. Is this a launch project to transition to a feature, build more industry relationships, etc.? What was the vision for it from a business perspective?
Good question. I'll speak fast so we can get on to all of your questions, hopefully, or most of them. For each short film, we try to come up with a set of goals. Our first goal is to glorify God in every step of the process, whether it's just a fun comedy or, maybe it has a good story, whatever it is, we want to glorify God in every step of the process. Then our other set of goals will be, for this one, it was to create a good fight scene. And I love action adventure. We both do period pieces, action adventure. So these shorts help us practice to, Lord willing, one day make a feature film and practice out good fight scenes or doing a period piece. So hopefully that answers your question. Do you have anything to say on that?
Yep. That was our goals. We wanted to we were like, we need to practice a good fight scene. So, and we created a story around it. So it wasn't just us filming a random fight scenes. That way it'd be a production as well.
How was the budget compared to Iron?
Lower, actually, maybe half of what Iron was. Mm-hmm.
What do you hope to do in the future?
Create more short films that have truth in them. We hope to entertain, inspire, and strengthen our audience through short films and, Lord willing, feature films.
Do you guys have ideas for feature films? Is there any sort of teasers you can give our audience?
Do we have ideas?
We have loads and loads of ideas, that's for sure. We just love action adventure period pieces.
Cool. So we can hope to see more from you of that in the future?
Lord willing.
Yeah, if it's the Lord's will, gonna see it. Yeah.
Okay. What was the absolute most challenging part of this film?
Ooh, that's a good question.
There was a lot of stress.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the devil tries to mess you up and get inside your head and annoy you and everything. But there's something amazing about working with the body of Christ, that there's an element there that you don't have in other situations. And I love seeing God bless you through the storm. And I feel like he really blessed us through the storms, both literally, and so I think for me personally, just trying to handle everything and figure things out, and you're already stressed out. So just figuring that out. But I was so blessed with everyone to walk alongside me and help me with that. What about you?
Yeah, I would say the most challenging thing, there are all these different elements that add just a little bit of stress each time. Like, oh, there's a tornado warning, or oh, there's flash flood warning, or whatever it is. Oh, it snowed this day. And these things just keep stacking up. And it wears on you really hard. So that was probably the hardest thing. And then you're trying to work with everyone. And if people are not getting their sleep is vital to being able to function. So if you're not able to maintain your sleep, then things will be terribly miserable. So try to get your sleep on set. I know you want to stay up and post and talk to people or vlog or something. Don't get your sleep. Anyway, But that was the most difficult thing. But like Crimson said, working with other believers was a huge blessing because everyone could just extend grace to each other and just work. So if you get in a little tiff with someone, you can come back there and be like, that was my bad. I'm sorry about that. Like, we're good. And you can keep going to production. It was great. It was such a blessing.
What about you, Mr. Mike?
The most challenging thing, just the cold, or more the wet than the cold. Once it started snowing, it was cool. That was fine. But the wet and cold was just challenging. When you're an old guy, you young people, it's no big deal. But when you get to be my age, the joints don't move like they used to in the cold weather. So that was the hardest part for me.
What is the main thing you learned from this production that you will apply to your next project?
There was something very specific. Deadlines, that's what it was. Yes.
Deadlines, yeah, for pre-production. I think we did the best in pre-production for this film than we have in our past films, the best yet, but we still learned a lot for deadlines in pre-production.
There was a lot of stuff that we learned, but one that really stuck out that we realized we could have identified and fixed a lot of problems. Even more so in pre-production is if we had deadlines to some of our pre-productions that was accomplished way before the shoot even happens. Because we were trying to get some things rushed there at the end. And looking back, we could have avoided some of that.
What site did you use for casting, or did you use a site for casting?
I used Facebook. It's amazing. There's a lot of actors that are on Facebook, and I did post it on, I think I posted it on a few different groups, like acting groups or filmmaking groups. And I also, on my own website, on our own website, you can sign up to immediately get a cast and crew call first before it goes on any social media. And so that'll go to your inbox if you're signed up before we'll post it. So I had sent it out through there, and we had several people apply through there as well.
Can you give us the name for your website so anyone can sign up for that too?
Yes, it's crimsonrosesug.wixsite/website or something like that.
If you go to
our
Facebook page, go to the Crimson Rose Productions Facebook page, and there's a link there to the website.
Yes.
It's the easiest way to get there.
Okay. Does your whole family usually work on your films?
Oh, yes.
Yes. They help pitch in one way or another, whether it's pre-production, giving a lot of advice. I bounce off a lot of ideas off of them in pre-production, post-production, or they'll work on set or act in it during the shoot, and they're invaluable. They're such a blessing.
What did the rest of them do? I know you mentioned your younger brother was a PA. What was the rest of your family involved in?
On this set of Challenge, my mom, Tracy Sugg, was an actress and played the noblewoman and did a wonderful job. And my father also acted in it as the facilitator and also did a wonderful job. So I like seeing my family act. It's fun. And they also they're a good encouragement to have on set.
And then also, like our dad, like I said at the beginning, he identified rain was going to be an issue and said, hey, we should find a way to work around this. And just went ahead and helped. And I didn't have time to do stuff. And he was like, right before he'd go to work, he'd have a little window of time. So he'd run, get some tarps and rope and bring it back and do some work with me. And he'd just pitch in and help. Same thing with
our mom,
my mother. We were working on the props. And we were like getting close to shooting. And I was like, we have some vital props you have to get done. And I don't know how to complete them. And she just stepped in and made them look amazing. Oh my goodness.
That's cool. So I want to kind of use this for a bigger question. It says, when does Challenge come out? But also, can you tell us like what more has to be done, and when and where can we see it?
So we almost have a picture edit locked, which is when you edit, there's a lot that goes into editing. So right now we have a lot of the visual that is almost edited out. And then we're going to work on sound design, adding Foley noises, which is like, maybe a punching noise or a sword noise. And then we also are going to be sending it to a colorist that is going to color the film. And we'll be sending it to a composer. And we'll also be sending it to a visual effects artist who will add some falling snow. I guess it's okay.
Yes, to help with that continuity a little bit.
Yeah. And we hope to have it released sometime this summer. I don't have an exact date for sure. It also depends on the other people's schedules, but you could probably expect to see it in the summer.
We want to make sure we do a good job in post-production, so we're taking it easy. So.
And we can watch your Facebook page for that, I'm assuming?
Yes, you can see it both on Facebook and on YouTube, Crimson Rose Productions on YouTube.
Cool. Okay. 2 more questions here. And then for our audience, in case you weren't able to see the promo at the beginning, we're also going to play it at the end as kind of a closeout to this time. But 2 last questions. You mentioned how your faith has influenced you on set. Is the film a Christian-based project? How or is your faith represented in the film?
That's a really good question. For us in our films, I love to have underlying truth in our films. It can be small and it can be more mainstream, is that the right word? It can be bigger. And so there is some faith. Well, it's hard to explain without giving the story away. You'll be able to see it, I think, in there. But I just love having hidden virtues and morals and truth in our films that's subtle and influences the audience, whether or not they know it.
Yeah, and I think that you need to think about what you need to do to glorify and honor God. So if someone's a plumber, you know, they go and they plumb houses and stuff like that. So how would they glorify God? They do it by their work and their attitude and stuff like that. So I think it's possible when you make a film, if you make an Edwardian comedy that's just funny and it doesn't have any Bible verses or anything, that's how do you glorify God with this? Well, dedicate the project to him. Create a good atmosphere on set, just for every step of the way, and just be attentive to what he wants you to do. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of the approach that we take as well.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. I have a question here. Someone asked if this interview will be rebroadcast or available to view later. Yes. The answer to that is yes. You can find it on Crimson Rose Productions page or our SC Treehouse page, either place. All right, last question. I'd be curious to know what the lighting solution was. All natural?
Good question.
Our gaffer got stolen.
The Lord was gracious, and we had wonderful overcast days. Overcast with rain and snow, but there was lots of clouds. So we had wonderful natural lighting, so we stuck with that.
Yep, and we had a gaffer on set, and we needed him to fill another position that was more urgent than gaffing, believe it or not. And he did an excellent job. I can't say what that is at this moment, but God was gracious.
But he was able to gaff some, by the way, gaffing is lighting. He was able to light some promo pictures that we did. So he was able to do part of his job. But he jumped in, and if we hadn't had him, it would have been really bad. So we're really thankful to every person on set.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any last things that you would like to share with the people watching? Any of you?
Well, I'd just like to say thanks for joining us, and thank you, Heidi and Christopher, for asking us to be a part of this. And again, just a huge shout out to the cast and crew. We love y'all. Y'all are amazing, and we couldn't have done it without y'all.
Thank you so much for joining us. As I said, we'll play the promo in just a minute. Thank you for joining us for the behind-the-scenes sneak peek of Challenge, and hopefully you'll go to Crimson Rose Productions, so you'll be ready to see it when it comes out. All right, here comes the promo, and then also join us tomorrow as we premiere Wheelchair here on Storytellers.
Camera speeding.
Slide it.
Scene 2, Juliet, take 1.
actually got square in focus.
Okay.
So I held that, but the mud was tripping me up.